Take a look at that. The ethics of accounting. Integrity. Objectivity. Professional competence and due care. Confidentiality. Professional behavior. This is out in the world. This is what is required of accountants or treasurers out in the world. And we'll see that we, as treasurers of the church, we are bound by these principles and more because we have the biblical principles. Okay? So integrity, you mean you have to be honest. Objectivity, no beating around the bush. Very clear business practice, right? Professional competence, you have to have some idea of accounting in order to perform that task. Confidentiality means what? You know, what happens in the treasury stays in the treasury unless it is required that others know, and we will cover that. And professional behavior. Of course, we do not want to lose trust. We do not want to act in a way that is not proper, so that people will not question our integrity, right? And our confidentiality. So now, this is very simple covering of accounting. There are two types of accounting, bookkeeping: the single entry and double entry. Don't get, hung up on this. But it's very simple. One, it's way easier to do, and the other one is a lot more complicated. If you have a big business, then that's what you want to do. You want to use double entry accounting. I'm not going to cover that. Why? Because local church usually uses single entry type of accounting, and all of the accounting principles applies to the local church. Also, it is true that it is done in a much simpler way. Note, if the local church uses an accounting software, this system will determine if it is going to be single entry or double entry. Again, don't get hung up on that. So how to determine the value of the company or the church in this case? You have assets, you have liabilities, and then if you subtract your liabilities from your assets, that's your capital. That's your capital account. That's how much the church owns or has. And now how to determine the daily health of the company or the church? Income, monies that come in, tithe and offerings. Expense, electric bill and utilities, telephone and whatever. Those are your expenses, money that goes out. So if you want to know if there was profit or loss, it's very simple. You get your income, subtract your expenses, and if you have negative number, it's a loss. If you have positive, you're in good shape. Okay? So, how does it work? Income. Every income is recorded and a receipt is generated. I believe all of you do that. Expense. Every expense is recorded with a supporting document. Not everybody does that. If we get audited, we'll be in trouble because we cannot support those entries in the books. Now, more direct to the church, the types of income. We have tithe, offerings, goods, labor, houses, lands, inheritance, etc. Okay? So these are we think that it is only tithe and offerings. No. Many times people donate clothes and we have to give them a receipt for that if they ask. If they don't, that's fine. If they ask, then we have to provide them a receipt for goods and service. Somebody comes and fixes the lights and, patches a hole in the wall, and they ask, listen, I am going to do this for free, but I want a tax-deductible receipt, and this is how much it would cost you to perform this task. So the treasurer needs to give a receipt for that amount. Now, types of expenses, you have wages, labor, rent, electricity, water, propane, cleaning, maintenance, office supplies, bank fees, kitchen supplies, cleaning supplies, etc., etc., and the list goes on. Okay? Now, in regards to recording your expenses, notice this. When buying products, a business gets an invoice from the supplier. When borrowing money from the bank, a business signs a note payable, a copy of which the business keeps. When preparing payroll checks, a business depends on salary rosters and time cards. All of these key business forms serve as sources of information entered into the bookkeeping system. These types of documents must be kept to back up the entries of the general ledger. The auditor will depend heavily on these documents, and that's going to cover your back, okay? Because you don't want to have an entry, an expense in your books that you cannot support it. That's a big no-no. Don't do that. I don't think I have to tell you that, but just making sure. Now, the church view of accounting. Let's take a look at it. The local church accounting, besides the financial and accounting rules and its obligations with the government, is also bound by biblical principles. And there are many principles here, but I'm going to cover just two. 1 Corinthians 14:40, the verse that was read in the beginning. Let all things be done decently and in order. This is crucial. When an auditor comes to to audit the books, you don't want to have documents scattered all over the place. You want them filed in a very orderly manner so that it becomes very easy to find the supporting documents that you need. In Matthew 6:3, but when thou dost alms, let not thy left hand know what thy right hand doth. Now, this is very, very important. This is where people lose trust. Not only on the treasurer, but can lose trust on the church. If I give an offering, the Bible says that my right hand should not know what my left hand does, right? So I put it in the plate, goes to the treasurer, and the treasurer tells him, brother, that brother there, he makes good money. And if I find out that you did that, that's it. Because it's none of anybody's business to know what I do, what I give, how much I make. So the treasurer has the added responsibility not only of doing a good job at keeping track of what happens, but also, pardon me? Discretion, yes. Confidentiality, exactly. I always say this. The most difficult job or office to fill in a church is the office of the treasurer. Why? Because of the qualifications. Because it's hard to fill the position of church elder, but the treasurer is even more difficult. Have you ever noticed that when you find a good treasurer, you keep it? You keep him or her forever? I'll tell you this. I mean, don't take me wrong here, but I've been the treasurer of my church for 24 years. Did I gain the trust of the members? That tells you something. But I'm going to tell you this. My brother has been the treasurer of his church for over 40 years. See, when you find a good treasurer, you keep that person. There is an investment involved. The church invests on that person. Because you have all the issues that go along with the treasury. You know, the bank accounts. You have to transfer the name to the new treasury. And all the problems with tax forms and so on, where the bank statements go to and so on, all these things. So changing treasurers is not a good business. I'm not protecting my job here, please don't think. No, don't think that. No, the point here that I want you to understand is that there is a huge amount of investment that the church does. It doesn't look like, it doesn't seem like, but there is. There is a lot of investment done. Let's go to the next one. In Luke 16, 1 and 2, it says, "And he said also unto his disciples, there was a certain rich man, which had a steward, and the same was accused unto him that he had wasted his good." Not robbed, not stolen, wasted his goods. "And he called him and said unto him, How is it that I hear this of thee? Give an account of thy stewardship, for thou mayest be no longer steward." You know, in the church, whenever there is misuse of tithe and offerings, whenever there is sin in the church, it is embarrassing. It is very embarrassing to the person that committed the sin. But when you are dealing with money, it's even more embarrassing. Because once you lose trust on that one individual, that's it. That person will not be trusted with money again. It's very unfortunate that you carry that stigma for the rest of your life. People will always question your honesty and your integrity. So, here it's talking about wasting the goods, not stealing. Okay? Christ doesn't go into stealing because the commandments already deal with that. Right? Thou shalt not what? So, now let's go to the next one. Hebrews 13:17. "Obey them that have the rule over you, and submit yourselves, for they watch for your souls as they that must give an account." So treasurers, they must give an account every month. We'll see later, every month they must submit a report, either to the church board, or before the church in a business meeting, or to the conference, or to the union, whatever level you serve as a treasurer. Okay, now there is another responsibility here, and I tell you, I have been very, very, I'm not going to say careless, but for me it was not important. is investment. Besides the income and expenses aspect of accounting, we also have a couple more responsibilities. And what are they? Savings and investment. Savings make sure that we don't overspend, right? And that we keep a reserve. It's extremely important that we keep some money aside. At least a year's worth of expenses, of budget of the church, the local church, at least 1 year, so that if things go bad, remember COVID? It wasn't too long ago. If things go bad, then we will have a reserve and we will continue to operate. Now, investment. What do I mean by investment? We have money sitting in the bank account. Should that money be sitting in the bank account? Not really, because you're losing money. Then I have to direct you to the parable of the talents, right? What was the problem with the man that received 1 talent? He dug a hole, buried it, right? Did that money lose value? Probably back in those days it did not. There was no such a thing as inflation. But the point here is that money should be making money. And it's very unfortunate that in the world that we live today, the rule is that money makes money. The more money you have and the more you invest, the more you make. And so it is. So it should be with the church. Not that we should be accumulating money in the bank. No, not at all. But we should have a reserve. And that reserve that we have should be making money. So I'll tell you the experience of our local church. We had a fairly good amount of money in the bank. And I wanted to put it on a CD, certificate of deposit, which is making pretty good money right now. It's 4.75 in some banks, 5% in other banks, and you can go even up to 5.25, 5.25% interest. And I tried to do that, but the account was such a mess, legally speaking, because it was created back in back in the early 80s. And back in the 80s, the requirements were very different than what it is today. So I tried to open a CD, and I just couldn't. I had to solve all the problems. We had a brother as a signer of the account that had been dead for quite a while already. And he was the signer of the account. Okay? So treasurers, make sure that this does not happen. That you always have the right people as the signers of the account, because if something happens, it is going to be really difficult for you to recover the money that's in the account. So after I was able to resolve all the issues, and finally the bank agreed that we could open a CD account. And we did. We put some money there. And since then, we've been making an average about $250 a month. You see, that was money that we were losing every month. You see the importance of investment. Taking care of the talents is not only keep them safe. No. Is to bring in return. Many times this investment is through hiring a new worker. If that worker is good, that worker will work to save souls. Souls will come to the church, and these souls will pay tithe, and the finances of the church will improve. So there are different types of investments. It's not only putting money in the bank. Okay, so let's go to just a comment here. Saving money, especially on the personal side, is worth the effort. It gives you peace of mind, it gives you options, and the more you save, the easier it becomes to accumulate additional savings. The key point here is peace of mind. This is the key point. So you want to have a reserve that will give you peace of mind, or give the church, the members, peace of mind. So the workers will not have to worry if there is a turnaround in the economy, I'm not going to get paid or something like that. No. You want to make sure that everyone will not have additional stress than the job already puts on the workers. Also, on the personal side, investments might be something you already have or are looking to make in the future. It is important to make sure you become acquainted on the best investments for your future or the church's. So, now let's look at the structure a little bit here. And I'm preaching to the choir here. Okay, you know this quite well. So the management of church financial responsibilities are structured as follows. You have the local church treasurer, the very bottom of the totem pole. And the treasurer will track and record money transactions, income, expense. You have the church board. The church board does what? Manages the money, right? The church board makes the decisions about the money, what we're going to do with the money. But let's invest it this way or that way, or let's spend, buy a new car, or something like that. And then you have the mission, field or conference treasurer / auditor. And what is the function in regards to the local church? Receives tithe and offerings from local churches and audit the church books. Why is that important? We never do that. We never do that. Very seldom we do that with the local churches. It's very unfortunate. Why is it important? Because if something is done wrong, not intentionally, but because of lack of knowledge, that can be corrected. And these things can affect the church, how it functions, how it operates. So it is very important that this structure functions in a way that is productive. So, local church accountant or treasurer responsibilities, simplified here, okay? Record income, deposits the money in the bank. Records expenses, writes check and disburses monies. Balance accounts, make sure that there is no discrepancy. Calculates income versus expense, right? Creates monthly report, submits reports to local church board. Submits monthly report with a check to mission field conference treasurer. So 2 responsibilities. The treasurer has to answer to the church board and has to answer to the conference. Okay? In your case, the conference. Note, it is also, this is what I want to get into. And I want to cover this, dissect this really well, because this is extremely important. It is also the responsibility of the treasurer to ensure the members are paying the tithe. Wow. Did you know that this is your responsibility? Did you know? But you don't do that alone. I'm sorry? It's the most difficult part of the job. It is. Because it is very difficult for you to come to someone and say, brother, you're not paying tithe. God cannot bless you. It is not easy. It's the hardest part of the job. But we'll cover that in detail later. The monies that are collected by the local church sustains the entire church. You think that, our local church, it's who cares for the amount of money that we make, it's nothing. But there is a saying in Portuguese that a chicken fills the crop eating one kernel at a time. One bite at a time, and you fill up your stomach. So, no money is too little when it comes to the cause of God, and you will understand that later. Do you remember the widow's mite that she dropped into the treasury? How important was that money? How important was it? I mean, value-wise, it was a pittance, right? Nothing. But who saw the purpose? Who was watching that widow as she put the money there? God Himself was watching that. So how important is it that no matter how much we give, as little as you can imagine, it is important. So again, the monies that are collected by the local church sustains the entire church organization, from the local church to mission field conference to the union and all the way to the general conference. These monies are used for the furtherance of God's cause on this earth. Okay, so let's take a look now at tithe and offerings. Okay. This is from the accounting perspective. We are going to look at it in some other, from another angle. So there are many different types of accounts, or as these are commonly called, tithe and offerings. Accounting-wise, we call them accounts. In church atmosphere, we call them tithe and offerings. The local church collects them and distributes as follows. Now, here we go. The treasurers have to live by this. Okay? There are 3 levels of offering. There is the local church, starting from the bottom. I'm so sorry. Okay. So, there are 3 levels of offerings. Local church offerings, field conference offerings, tithe and offerings, and general conference offerings. What's the difference? Local church offerings support the local church work, right? Field conference supports the work of the conference. And the general conference, of course, supports the work. And by the way, what is the money used for at the general conference level? I'm sorry? Okay, I'll explain to you. So, but the question is, what does the general conference do with the money that is sent to them, the money that gets to them? Tithes and offerings. Both. Tithe and offerings, both of them. It is to further the preaching of the gospel, right? Open new fields and pay the workers to go there and start work in places such as like in Africa. I was in Rwanda a few weeks ago, and I was amazed to see what happened in that place. I think there are about 1,000 members, and that is, I think, less than 20 years old field. So I went there to teach at the missionary school. I spent a week talking about finances, and it's amazing to see how that field is growing. But Rwanda is very different. Rwanda is a country that is 98% Christian. 98% Christian. The largest religion is Catholic. The second largest, guess what? Which one it is? Adventism. The second largest. So, and you see, because I've been to different countries in Africa, and you see the difference, the behavior, the demeanor of the Rwandese people. Very different. They are very noble, honest, and so on. So God blesses the work, you know. So let's see. Local church, offerings that come to the local church, what are they? Can help me. Divine service, Dorcas, what else? Medical missionary, missionary literature, media department, young people's department, prayer meeting, church expenses, and projects/offerings that the local church initiates. Okay, we have a project in our local church to build a Sabbath school room. So now those funds are specific for the local church, and we manage that to be used for that purpose. So here, the local church keeps 100% of that money. Nothing goes to the conference or general conference. It stays in the local church for its support. Then you have the field conference. You have what? Tithe, first fruits, first day, thank, Sabbath school, and projects and offerings at the field level, at the conference level. Okay? So, the church, now notice the line above, offering account, local church, field conference, union, general conference. See that? See that above? Okay, so you have 3 levels of offerings, and then where the money goes, because some of the offerings are shared. In the case of tithe, it is shared, not by the local church, but it's shared by the conference and the union and the general conference. Okay, so let's take a look in answer to your question. Let's look at field conference. I'm going from bottom up. Okay, so field conference, tithe. How much does the local church keep? See the column, local church? How much does it keep? 0. How much does it send? 100%, right? Then field conference keeps what? 75% to pay its workers, and 25% goes to the union. Okay? And then of that 25%, the union keeps 15% and sends 10% to the general conference. Okay, it's a very small amount that goes to the general conference. Only 10%, the tithe of the tithes. Okay. Now, the general conference offerings, which is first Sabbath. Yes. Yes.
Isn't it only 10% that should be sent?
No, No, it's 25%. Yeah. Oh, but just a second. In our case, our union, it's only 20%. It's only 20%. But I'll explain. It's an exception. It's an exception because that has never been. It needs to be revisited. This is how all the fields and conferences in the world function. There is another table for the missions. The missions operate differently. Okay, so I'll cover that. So yes, in our case, we send the conference sends 20% to the